She stood on our porch with that paper in her hand, tapping it against her palm like she was the law herself. "You people don't belong here," Karen hissed, her voice loud enough for the neighbors to peek through their curtains. She slapped a fake HOA notice right on our door and shouted, "Pack your things or I'll have you arrested by tonight." My wife was inside, feeding our newborn, and I was holding the baby monitor when I heard it. I stepped out, calm but burning inside, and asked her, "On whose authority?" That's when she smirked and pulled out her phone. "Mine. And the cops are on their way." The crowd started gathering, curious and whispering, but nobody spoke up. Karen walked to my driveway and kicked at the boxes we hadn't unpacked yet, muttering, "This isn't your kind of neighborhood." My fists tightened, but I held my ground. I knew what she didn't, that every word, every step was being recorded on the cameras I had installed. The first night we moved in, she pointed at my car, yelling, "Tow truck's already coming. You'll learn quick who runs this street." But before I could answer, the distant sound of boots on concrete broke through the shouting. Karen turned her head, and so did the crowd. My wife had stepped out, the baby still against her chest, her navy uniform catching the sunlight. Gasps spread across the street like fire. Karen's grin vanished in an instant. My wife didn't raise her voice, didn't even need to. She just looked Karen straight in the eyes and said, "Touch one more box, and see how far your fake rules get you." For the first time all day, Karen went silent. But I knew her kind, this wasn't over. She had already called someone. And whatever was coming next would be bigger than just words on paper. Karen's silence didn't last long. She pulled her phone back up and walked a few steps away, talking fast and throwing glances at us. Within minutes, 2 black SUVs rolled into the street with flashing lights mounted on their dashboards. The neighbors shifted uneasily as men in cheap uniforms stepped out, their badges glinting but looking off, like something from a costume shop. One of them shouted, "Sir, step off the property. This home is under HOA investigation." Karen puffed up like she owned the whole block. "Arrest them. They're trespassing," she barked, pointing straight at me and my wife. My wife didn't move. She just held our baby closer and whispered, "Stay calm. Watch." The fake officer strutted toward me, waving a clipboard, but when I asked for his department ID, he shoved it back into his pocket and snapped, "You'll see it at the station." The crowd gasped. Karen clapped her hands together, enjoying every second. Finally, she said, "We're cleaning this neighborhood up." She looked around for approval, but the neighbors only exchanged worried looks. That's when the tow truck pulled up, chains rattling as the driver backed toward my car. My chest tightened. That car wasn't just transportation, it held all our important papers from the move. Karen leaned over the tow truck window and yelled, "Take it. Don't let them drive off." I took a step forward, ready to put an end to this circus. But my wife stopped me with just a glance. She shifted the baby in her arms, stood taller in her navy blues, and called out, "You're impersonating law enforcement. And that makes this a federal crime." The street went dead silent. Even the fake cops froze for a second, eyes darting to Karen. She waved them on desperately, but you could see the cracks forming in her plan. The tow truck driver hesitated, looking between us and Karen. And then, one of the men in uniform reached for his belt. The man's hand hovered near his belt, and for a terrifying second I thought he was reaching for a weapon. The crowd stiffened, someone whispered, "Is this even legal?" Karen, seeing the hesitation, barked, "Do it. Show them they can't ignore the HOA." Her voice cracked this time, but she forced a smirk back onto her face. The fake officer took a step closer to me, his boots heavy on the driveway. "Sir, you're resisting orders. Hand over your keys and step aside." He reached out like he was about to shove me back. My wife didn't flinch. She shifted the baby to one arm, then pulled a small leather wallet from her pocket with the other. She flipped it open with a snap. The gold Navy ID gleamed in the sunlight. "You just threatened a federal officer's family," she said. her voice low but cutting through the street like thunder. The neighbors gasped again, some stepping forward now, phones up and recording. One woman muttered, "Oh my God. She's Navy." Another man whispered, "This doesn't look right. Those aren't real cops." The fake officer froze mid-step, his confidence draining as the camera zoomed in on his face. Karen's smirk twisted into panic. She rushed forward, shouting, "Don't listen to her. She's faking it, look at her costume." But her voice cracked so badly it only drew more attention. My wife squared her shoulders and raised her voice so everyone could hear. "If you touch my husband, you'll answer not just to me, but to the federal agents I already called." Right on cue, a distant siren wailed from down the street. Not the cheap flashers on Karen's cars, this was the real thing. The color drained from Karen's face. But instead of backing down, she clenched her fists and screamed, "No. Arrest them before the real cops get here." And in that moment, one of the fake cops made the worst mistake he could. He grabbed my arm. His grip tightened on my arm. Rough and desperate, but before he could drag me, my wife's voice cut the air like a blade. "Release him. Now." She didn't yell, she didn't need to. That calm authority in her tone made the neighbors lean in, phones held higher. The fake cop hesitated, but Karen shoved him from behind. "Do it. Don't let her scare you. They're leaving tonight whether they like it or not." The crowd started murmuring louder now. One neighbor muttered, "This doesn't feel right." Another said, "Why would the Navy be lying?" But the tow truck driver revved his engine, chains clinking as he moved closer to my car. My chest pounded. Inside that car were documents proving this land was ours, every deed, every receipt. If Karen got that car towed, it would be more than humiliation. It would be disaster. The fake cop yanked harder on my arm, trying to force me down the steps. When suddenly a piercing wail filled the street. Real sirens. Red and blue lights flashed across the houses as two police cruisers swung around the corner. The neighbors erupted with gasps and hurried back onto their lawns. Cameras still rolling. The fake cops stiffened, exchanging nervous glances, their fake badges now looking like toys under the real spotlight. Karen's face went pale, but she still tried to bluff. She ran into the middle of the driveway, waving her arms and shouting, "Officers! Over here! Arrest them! They're trespassing in this home." But the real police didn't even look at us first. Their eyes locked on the fake uniforms and the black SUVs. One officer shouted, "Badges on the ground. Hands where we can see them." The fake cops froze, caught between Karen's frantic orders and the reality that they were seconds from being cuffed. My wife's grip on our baby tightened, but her eyes never left Karen. For the first time, I saw something in Karen I hadn't before, fear. And then the officer turned to her directly and said, "Ma'am, you'd better start explaining." Karen stumbled over her words, her hands flailing as if she could wave the truth away. They're lying. I'm the HOA president, and they're criminals. Arrest them, now." But her voice shook, and the officers weren't buying it. One stepped closer, holding up a body cam that had already been recording. "Ma'am, we've had calls about you before. And these men with you, they're not officers. That makes this serious." The fake cops dropped their cheap badges one by one, realizing there was no escape. The officers moved in fast, cuffing them right there in front of the whole neighborhood. The crowd erupted, neighbors whispering, filming, some even cheering quietly under their breath. Karen backed away, her face red. But the officer caught her arm before she could slip off. "You're coming too. Impersonating law enforcement, harassment. Trespassing, you've crossed every line." Karen shrieked, fighting against the cuffs, but no one came to her rescue. The same neighbors she once bullied now watched with satisfaction as the woman who thought she ran. Everything was finally silenced. I glanced at my wife, still holding our baby close. She wasn't smiling, but her steady gaze said everything. She had stood her ground, not just as a wife, not just as a mother, but as someone who served and protected. The officer turned to us and asked, "You folks okay?" I nodded, my throat tight. "We're fine. Just tired of being told we don't belong." The officer gave a small nod back. "You do belong. And she won't be bothering you again." As the police cars pulled away with Karen screaming in the back seat, the street grew quiet. The neighbors lingered, some apologizing for not stepping in sooner, others thanking us for standing up to her. My wife finally looked at me, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I didn't wear this uniform to be told. I can't live in my own home," she said softly. And in that moment, standing on our porch with my family safe and justice served, I knew Karen's reign of fear was over. The house was finally ours, not just in paper, but in peace.